Hello, welcome back to the Red Devils Den podcast we talk all things Manchester United. And yes, we're back. We got two matches to talk about. It's the Brighton game on Sunday and the Granada game coming up in a couple of days' time. So, first of all, Josh, we're going to start with the Brighton game. So, what were your sort of thoughts on that?
We looked very rusty at the start. Quite a few of our players had obviously been on international break, so you can forgive them, I suppose, because we got the result in the end. But there was, I was being very reactionary in my own head, and I'm maybe Twitter too, just because you've seen us drop points when other teams have dropped points beforehand, and we've not taken advantage, but we did this time. I can't really pick out any individuals other than Harry Maguire, who was excellent. I thought Lindelof had a good game too, apart from the Welbeck goal. We minimalised Brighton's chances, considering how good they are at creating them, and we were patient. And what I love about this team is that we never seem to give up, which is the age-old attitude of Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson, and what we've seen a lot this season. So overall, I'm obviously happy with the result. I just hope we start to see an improvement in performances as we reach the business end, especially in the Europa League.
Yeah, fair enough. So, United vs Surgeon, can you sort of add anything to that?
Yeah, so for me, this match, I wouldn't excuse the rustiness because of the international break. I think the players that we had who didn't go on international, so weren't quite as maybe match fit. Brighton had a similar number, so it's not as though they had 11 players out there who'd been playing every week for the last 2 weeks. So I think the rustiness factor was similar for both sides, and they drastically outperformed us in the first half. And also, it's a trend this season that United don't show up in the first half. We've been a second half team. Us and Wolves, I think, are the two teams that tend to score the most goals, most percentage of their goals in the second half. And while that's okay for a team that's looking to get 70, 75 points and finish in the top four, cement second this season, it's not a good enough number, or it's not a good enough standard for us to only show up for 45 minutes if we're aiming to win trophies next season. And so that's one of the things that Ollie has to work on. Another way to look at it, though, like Josh was saying, was that it shows the great character of this side. We're willing to fight back like we haven't seen since under Sir Alex Ferguson. So there's definitely positives to be gleaned from it as well. But ultimately, the fact that we didn't show up until the second half is troubling. I know he picked out Harry Maguire for special praise, and I agree with that. I would also go ahead and give out some praise to Luke Shaw, whose inventive passing created the second goal for us. And then also he was his usual self defensively and going forward. So I was quite impressed by him as well.
Were you impressed as well, Vin?
Yeah, I think the first 10 minutes we started off really well. Whenever Brighton had the ball, we sort of pressed them, caught the ball, and then whenever we were on the ball, we looked sharp around the corner. Greenwood had an opportunity, but he hit the post in the first 10 minutes. But then after that, I think we sort of fell back. Brighton took advantage of it, and that resulted in the first goal for them. And like Resurgent said, we have this tendency to sort of ease into the game. It takes about 20, 25 minutes or probably a goal down for us to then to sort of show up and play our own game. So I think that was another case. But as we've seen time and time again this season, we never give up. We've taken 25 points from losing positions. That's the most this season by any team. So that just shows that how much grit or determination this team has to sort of not throw in the towel, unless it's like Spurs, normally like the Spurs game. But otherwise, yeah. At the end, like Sir Alex Ferguson used to say, it's squeaky bum time. So it doesn't matter how flawless the performance is, as long as you get the 3 points or the win. So it's that state of the season, and yeah, I'll take whatever it comes at.
Yeah, and there was another sort of big talking point around the game as well, because in terms of the starting 11 selection, obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer decided to pick Dean Henderson instead of David Gea, which I think, has that happened before in Premier League when David Gea has actually been fit maybe the Sheffield game. I don't know, but to me it looks like he's found his new number one. Obviously, De Gea has been a really good servant to the club. I would say a club legend, to be honest. But Josh, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think he's going to be the number one now? Or?
I personally hope he is, but I'm not just going to overreact just yet, just because he hasn't played. I said in the last podcast, he'd not played for 5 weeks. So I don't think he was going to throw him in against Brighton anyway. Let's see what happens on Thursday. And then I think the deciding game might be who he picks for Spurs at the weekend. Then I can start to probably say, oh, it looks like Dean is his number one. Look, I think it's quite a unanimous decision by everybody who's on this panel anyway, that Henderson is probably all our favourite to go forward. Obviously, a few disrespectful things have been said about De Gea, and then there's a few disrespectful things being said about Henderson too. I think they've been very respectful in their fight, and let's just see now who is the number one towards the end of the season. Henderson's chasing an England spot, and we're chasing a trophy. So let's keep the competitive spirit up. We don't want any sad notes about how the dressing room is split on it and De Gea's not happy with Ollie. We just want professionalism, and if De Gea is going to go out, let him go out in the right way, because he deserves to decide how he goes.
Yeah, for sure. Finn, do you think Henderson is going to just be the number one now, or are you like Josh? You're not quite sure yet.
I do expect De Gea to play a few games for us till the from now till the end of the season. I feel that he's going to play against Granada, and I still feel he's going to get picked against Spurs. I just have this feeling. It could be because of the fact that he was away for international break, even though he didn't play a single minute. But the fact that he hasn't played for 5 weeks, and the game against Brighton was important in terms of sealing our top four status. So I just felt that Ole was more comfortable going with Dean instead of David. But I think he'll probably start against Granada. And then depending on that, we'll see who gets picked for Spurs. But I feel it'll be David De Gea against Spurs. Yeah, and I don't think there's a rift between the two goalkeepers or the manager. I think most of that is driven by the media. That recent report which came out from the Manchester Evening News by Samuel Luckhurst, I think that's full of bollocks, in my opinion, because and one of the takeaways that I think it was a pundit from ESPN, so it's trash. So one of the things that they said was that this report shows that Ole is apparently not authoritative enough, and the players are questioning his authority. And I'm like, if that was the case, we would have seen it on the pitch by now. Because 2 instances that they picked out in that article was the game against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, where Ole wanted to start Henderson, but then David De Gea apparently had an issue, so he sort of spoke to him privately, and he didn't take it well, so Ole ended up starting David De Gea over Henderson, which I think is bollocks, because you can't override a manager's decision just like that. So I don't think Ole has given in to anyone whatsoever. So for those watching this, just don't take that article seriously. Manchester Evening News hasn't been reliable in ages, and I don't see any reason why they should be now. So there's no rift between the two goalkeepers or the manager. And I think David understands that Dean is going to be the future number one. He understands that. He knows he's going to get sort of succeeded. So in my mind, what I'm thinking is he is sort of helping him ease into that role in the best way possible behind the scenes during training. It may not be visible on match days, but I think that's what might be happening. And at the same time, David is trying to sort of fight for his spot, to get his spot back and get a few games in, so that in case that he wants to leave in the summer, he could his camp, his manager, his agent could sort of show potential suitors that, hey, this is what I can still do. So I think that's what, in my opinion, that's what the case is. I could be wrong, I could be right, but that's just my feeling.
Yeah, what do you think about that, United Surgeon?
Yeah, so I've been calling for Dean Henderson to take the number one shirt since I think around March 2020. So for me, this has been a long time coming. I know a lot of people have been saying that, Dean Henderson has great potential, but he's not as good as David De Gea is right now. Or they've been saying that they don't necessarily trust either keeper and we should look into signing one because Donnarumma is available on a free. There's been a lot out there, but for me, last season, Dean Henderson was one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. And in my opinion, he, at Sheffield United, performed better than David De Gea did for us. And then in their relative or their respective appearances for the club this season, I think Henderson's outperformed De Gea as well. So for me, it was no question that Dean Henderson should take the number 1 shirt. I'm quite happy to see that change has happened. I think Ollie won't be going back to De Gea for Spurs. My thinking is I think he'll find that Dean Henderson needs to be supported if he's going to make any kind of transition, and kind of chopping and changing your goalkeeper week to week based on performances or stress levels with the difficulty of the match is probably not the best idea to develop him. And especially with the Premier League not particularly mattering moving forward, top 4 seems pretty much a lock. And honestly, second versus third is, well, it's for pride. It's for pride, basically. So I'm not super concerned about that. I think we'll see Dean Henderson start the remainder of the Premier League matches. I think we'll see David De Gea start the Europa League matches. They've effectively switched places. And then I think we'll see David De Gea leave the club in the summer. So I think it was the right decision. I think Ollie's managed it very well in terms of the fact that De Gea was obviously going to be here until the summer. He wasn't going to leave in January. So making the switch pre-January would have just upset everybody. Handling it during De Gea's childbirth or his partner's childbirth is probably the best way to ease him out, because he was thinking, okay, I'm getting something out of this as well. And so it was a good way to handle it. And now with about 6-7 weeks left in the season, this is the right time for us to go ahead and say, okay, Dean Henderson, we're going to see what you can do with a prolonged stretch of matches, because I think he's played 6.5 90 minutes right now. He's got 8 more matches. So at the end of the season, we'll have seen him in almost 15 league matches, as well as the Europa League sample and the FA Cup and the EFL Cup up until this point. And so I think at that point, with something like 25, 30 matches, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be very well placed to make a decision with his coaches as to who the future number 1 should be for the next 2, 3, 5 years. And I think firmly it'll be Dean Henderson. And I think that's going to be something that benefits the club. I know a lot of people say that it's a British agenda or that it's an academy agenda, but I'm not British. And as far as the academy goes, I'm not trying to say Taith Chong should be starting at right wing. So it's not an agenda here. I just genuinely think Dean Henderson has the potential to be among the top goalkeepers in the world, and I think he's going to prove it out.
Can I just jump in? I'm just reading here because I just wanted to see, because the Spanish goalkeeper situation seems a bit similar from what I'm reading. Resurgent, you might be able to pronounce this better. Is it Unai Simon?
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he is like the same age as he's 23, and he's just played all 3 games for Spain. He actually made a mistake in the Nations League, but then played the game after 2. So it seems like they're moving forward with Unai Simon and kind of putting De Gea out too. So it's like he has the same situation in 2 different settings, in his national team and at Old Trafford, because he's not been good enough for 2 years. He had a horrendous World Cup and he's still not recovered from that. Listen, he's a Man United legend and he's a Premier League legend. And I think Ollie has handled this so well that it's got to the last 8 games in the league and potentially 5 in Europe without it. Now it's a massive thing. He's handled it so well. We just need to get to the end of the season without any big dramas, and then hopefully it can be dealt with in the summer. That's on John Murtow and Darren Fletcher's head. But yeah, I'm really confident if Dean is going forward. I know Resurgent said he's not got an academy agenda. I would rather see Dean Henderson make a mistake at the moment than De Gea, because yes, he is from the academy, so I'm willing to trust, not trust it more, but to bear with it more. Whereas we've seen De Gea, I think Watford away last year was probably when I started thinking maybe Henderson could be number one next year.
I think part of that, Josh, is honestly just that if you're going to have a goalkeeper who makes, let's say, 5 mistakes a season, if you're paying him a 100K a week, it's a lot more tolerable than if you're paying him 375K a week as the highest paid player in the Premier League. Yeah,
that's true. Spot on. And that's why I'm more willing to, well, one of the reasons why I'm more willing to have Dino as number one. And he's so supremely confident. You just don't get that confidence with David. He kind of invites the pressure on set pieces, whereas Dean, he's pushing and shoving and he's getting in the face. And I think it kind of brings that out of Lindelof too, and Maguire definitely, arguing with Dunk yesterday and Henderson on Sunday, and Henderson's involved. Just think it improves everybody in the team just that little bit more.
I think so. Just touching on that Unai Simon business. He is the Atletico Bilbao goalkeeper. He succeeded Kepa there, and when Kepa was there, he was hailed as one of the world's great world goalkeeping talents. And we've all seen how that worked out. So I wouldn't necessarily put all my stocks or all my faith into the Unai Simon camp. If I was Spain, you never know. As far as the situation goes, one other thing that I forgot to mention is that Ollie didn't really have a choice but to address this now in a way, or address at some point before the end of the season, because for the last 2 to 3 months, the signals from Dean Henderson's camp have been very clear that if he's not number one next season, he wants to leave the club. It's been very clear that he does not want to stick around as the cup goalkeeper for a second straight season. And Ollie said publicly that Dean Henderson is going to be United in England's number one at some point. And so if he wanted to stick with that vision, he almost didn't have a choice. At some point, he had to make this decision, and I'm glad he's done it now.
Yeah, fair enough. So Vin, do you have...
Just to add to what the two of them have said, many people have come out and they've criticized Dean Henderson. It's oh, he's not good enough. He's nowhere near David De Gea's potential, or he's nowhere experienced as David De Gea. Yeah, but what these guys don't understand is that when David De Gea first signed for us, and when he first started out, he had a lot of howlers as well. He had a lot of caps, and Sir Alex Ferguson played him through that. If you remember for this first couple of seasons, the 11, 12, 12, 13 season, there were a lot of questions surrounding David De Gea. Was he the right man to take over Van der Sar? Was he the successor to Van der Sar? Was he worth the 22 or 22 million pounds I was spent on him at that time, which was a pretty high amount for a goalkeeper that we had paid.
Record fee for a keeper at that point.
Exactly. And we hadn't paid for anyone as high as that. And so there were a lot of questions. But ultimately, come the 13-14 season onwards, he's shown he's shown his true potential. In fact, he was the world's best goalkeeper for 3 years in a row. So I think the amount of leeway that we gave with David De Gea back then, we should be giving the same amount of leeway with Dean Henderson. I'm not saying he's going to be flawless. I'm not saying he's going to be perfect every game. He's not going to keep a clean sheet every game. He is going to have mistakes, but the key is to sort of play him through that, because he's going to develop, he's going to gain experience, he's going to mature with each and every game. And I think the way we treated David De Gea, we should be treating and sort of helping out Dean Henderson the same way. And I think it's only fair to both of them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would rather have Henderson making a mistake than De Gea, as you and Josh were saying, because well, all of you were saying pretty much, but because Henderson is 23, where De Gea is 30, coming up to 30. So I think there's a lot more room for patience with Henderson, whereas De Gea, you just think, is he really going to improve any more than he already has? But yeah. There was one more thing in terms of the Brighton game that I wanted to talk about.
Sorry, just because before we move off the keeper thing, I wanted to just point out that Ollie said that Sergio Romero is leaving this summer. Recent reports suggest that Lee Grant won't be getting another playing contract. And then also David De Gea is probably going to move on if he doesn't get the number one shirt back. So that's going to be 3 30-plus goalkeepers moving on with hundreds of matches of experience each. And it said Joel Pereira would move on as well, which is less significant. But ultimately, that would leave our goalkeeping ranks in the first team down to Dean Henderson and then Nathan Bishop, who's never played at higher than the League One standard, I believe. And he's 22, 23 years old. So ultimately, this really, for me, points to the need for a summer signing at goalkeeper, an experienced backup, somebody who's played several hundred top division matches. I don't really have a name to throw out there. Ben Foster is one that's been talked about on Twitter, potentially on a free transfer from Watford. I haven't watched him in the Championship. I don't know if he's still up to the standard necessary, but whether it's Ben Foster or somebody else, the club are going to have to look into an experienced goalkeeper signing, because Dean Henderson cannot be backed up by someone who's never played at higher than the League One standard.
Would you take Donnarumma on a free?
I would not. He would demand to be the number one, obviously. And for me, Dean Henderson has got as much potential as Gianluigi Donnarumma has. The difference is that Donnarumma has been playing for a top club since he was 17. Dean Henderson's gotten 20 matches this season so far to prove himself. I think if you give them 3 years each, let's say Donnarumma signs for Chelsea on a free transfer and Dean Henderson becomes the United number one, in 3 years, I think there won't be much between them. And in that scenario, with Mino Raiola as Donnarumma's agent, I think you easily stick with Dean Henderson. Even if, honestly, if Donnarumma was a little bit better, I think the fact that you already have Henderson and the fact that you wouldn't have to deal with Raiola would make it worthwhile to just stick with Henderson. So Donnarumma is not even a consideration for me.
No. And nobody sees all the mistakes that Donnarumma has gone through, because obviously not a lot of people watch Italian football. It's that typical case, really, of, you know, when we criticise Rashford, or Man United fans criticise Rashford, because we're seeing the whole journey. So we're now going to see we've nearly the whole Dean Henderson journey. We've just got to stick by him when eventually he does make mistakes, which he will, as he's so young. In terms of second choice goalkeepers, we've had quite a settled goalkeeper department for a few years, so it's going to be a big summer if that's the case. Obviously, Romero's already definitely going. Bishop got a new contract, so they obviously believe in him in some kind of capacity. I don't like the idea of going into a season with him as number two, because, you know, the nature of Manchester United is we want to be playing 50 plus games a season. One goalkeeper can't do that. So going into the market for a number two, we would have to get it spot on. I think City have done a good job with Stefan and loaning him out. And he's had a good loan spell. So hopefully, but there obviously is a goalkeeper out there for us. If is Ben Foster the one? I'm not sure. He's been displaced by
Carl Darlow.
Maybe. Will these players want to play as a second choice goalkeeper? I'm not sure.
Well, Darlow is a second choice goalkeeper now to Dubravka. He lost the spot again once Dubravka got fit. So that's what I'm thinking. He at least has some experience in the Championship, and then also at least several dozen Premier League games that he can call upon, which is not ideal, but it's still a lot more than we have with Bishop.
Yeah. And there's also, I think, Matej Kovar from the academy, who went out to Swindon, didn't have the best loan spell, came back early. I wonder what our plan is there for him. He said I think he said in an interview when he came back that he just felt like this environment was better for him to develop. So maybe he wants to stay. It's very interesting. We've got a huge summer coming up, really.
Let me just point out one more thing on Donnarumma. You mentioned a lot of people haven't seen his development. And, on previous podcasts, we've talked about with Mino Raiola that not every Mino Raiola client is the same when it comes to making noise and disturbing their club. We compared the situation with, I think it was Mkhitaryan and Ibrahimovic and Haaland with that of Pogba. Donnarumma firmly falls into the Paul Pogba style camp. When his last contract renewal was taking place, I remember Milan fans took to calling him Dollarumma because he was just seeking to grab as much money as possible. So he is definitely in the Paul Pogba mold, and it would just be an absolute circus. Even if we did need a goalkeeper, that would not be the lane to look down.
Yeah, I mean, De Gea was the most paid goalkeeper in history or something like that. Donnarumma probably would be somewhere close to that, and he's only what 20, so No, I agree. With Mina Viola is his agent as well. I wouldn't go down that path. But yeah, I'm sure there's loads of goalkeepers who would happily take that second fill role to
Sergio
Henderson.
Romero is ideal for it if we hadn't had a
Yeah.
breakdown of the relationship between him and the club somehow over the past year. And if we could keep him, he's the ideal number 2 goalkeeper. One of the things I said last summer that I would have liked to see happen is we had loaned out Romero for the year to somebody. He goes, plays some football, enjoys the Copa Americana or whatever's taking place with Argentina this summer. Meanwhile, on United's end, we have the De Gea Henderson battle. We find out who wins, and then this upcoming season, Romero could have come back and just slid right back in as the backup to Dean Henderson, and it would have been perfect. And he's the exact profile of backup goalkeeper we need, and yet somehow the relationship soured to the point where that's not viable anymore, and it's just a shame. I think I've said this before, but I think the club did not handle the Sergio Romero situation properly. He is a player who gave his all to the club. He never complained. He never caused any issues. And then last summer, the club refused to let him go on loan. I understand not letting him go to Everton because we saw them as a rival for top 4, but I'm sure there was interest from Spain, from Italy, there's interest from MLS. There's so many other options on the table, and the club chose not to let him go. And beyond that, not let him go, but they didn't register him in the first half of the season. Now he's back with the club, but he's considered the 4th keeper behind Lee Grant. So I think there's a massive issue with the way he's been treated. So I don't blame him for wanting to leave, but it's just a shame because he's the ideal profile of goalkeeper that we're looking for.
I mean, Romero would have been an ideal choice, but I've just been looking at a couple of goalkeepers whom we can sort of go for. There's Simon Rice from PSG, who's also like a number 2. He's not getting any game time because Keylor Navas is over there taking in all the games. So Simon Rice, I think he's played for the national team before as well. So he's 27 years old, so he could be like a decent choice as a number 2. He's played the season 8 appearances for PSG, 5 clean sheets, 8 goals conceded, 6 goals conceded, and 5 clean sheets in 8 games. So he could be a decent number 2, and we'll have to see obviously what his contract situation is. Some might say Joe Hart from Tottenham. Would you take him?
Absolutely fucking
absolutely not.
Nah.
No.
Just throwing a name out there.
Although
I would rather go with Nathan Bishop than Joe Hart. My God, he is so howler prone. He is a shadow of the goalkeeper he was, and it would be a shambolic decision to bring him to the club.
To be fair to Vin, Dean Henderson did an interview recently and said that Joe Hart is his goalkeeping hero. So as a 2, they would work together, but no, he can't come and play for Manchester United.
Joe Hart was a great goalkeeper, but current Joe Hart is a meme. It's like the people who were suggesting bringing Alexis Sanchez back from loan because he had 3 decent games. This is worse because honestly, Joe Hart's decline has been worse than Alexis Sanchez's decline, and it would be such a bad decision to bring him in. I'm sorry, Vin. That was an own goal.
Yeah, no, I'm not advocating for his name. I'm just throwing it out there. It's just one of those names that popped up in my head because I'm like, okay, yeah. He's not playing, throw him in. Experienced keeper, throw Joe Hart in.
I wonder if Matt Ryan, I know he's on loan at Arsenal, if they choose not to take that up permanently, or if he becomes available. I know he lost out on the Brighton number 1 shirt, but it would be available for cheap. So that's at least one option for budget constraint.
It's just such a drop-off in quality, though, isn't it? From Romero and Henderson and De Gea to Matt Ryan and Carl Darlow. You know, that's probably the best thing Van Gaal's ever done is with Romero. It's just let's hope there's some better options out there for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to see. There's Ariola from Fulham as well, but I don't think he leaves because he's not going to get as much game time as he's getting at Fulham. I doubt he's been pretty decent.
I think he's on loan there, isn't he, from PSG, where he's not the first choice team.
Yeah, he is.
That's actually quite viable if they go down. I mean, if some other club doesn't come in for him to make him the first choice, he would be quite a solid option as a second goalkeeper, actually.
And he's good friends with Pogba.
Yeah.
Never mind, I retract my endorsement.
But mate, there's a chance Pogba leaves, so it's not all that bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many options, but it's just hard to think of one that's clearly going to work because you've got to ask them and you've got to think, are they going to be okay with being second
Yeah.
choice? And there's so many. I mean, as United Surgeon said, Vermeer would be ideal because he was so reliable for so many years and he was okay with being backup. But yeah, just briefly, one more thing on the Brighton game because I thought Fred actually had a really good game.
Yeah.
So do you guys think you could sort of have a bit of a resurgence? What do you think, Josh?
What was that? Sorry.
Fred, do you think he played well? Do you think you could have sort of like a
Yeah,
resurgence now?
I thought he played very well off the ball. Probably needed that kind of performance where he felt like he did everything that he could do in terms of what the manager told him to do. In terms of resurgence, I don't think he was playing that badly. He had a poor game against Leicester, but he was brilliant against AC Milan in that second half. I mean, for the goal especially. I just maybe felt like he needed a rest. Fred is one of the least of my problems in this squad, especially when we're talking about needing a midfield upgrade. Yes, we need to upgrade on him, but he has a place in the squad for sure. I would sooner go, Matic and sort the Pogba situation out, and obviously the goalkeeper and stuff like that. In terms of, I hope he has a good end to the season, and for me, he's a much valued member of the squad. He frustrates me when we are losing or drawing and chasing a game. But when you go away to the Etihad, I absolutely love him. I'm thinking, Fred, oh my God, he's like a Duracell bunny. He's not an issue for me. Definitely a valued member of the squad.
Yeah, what do you think, Vin?
Yeah, I remember saying this for the preview that I remember saying that Fred's going to have a good game because he's had 2 full weeks off. He hasn't had any international games to play. So I think that was a good opportunity for him to just like forget everything about the Leicester game and just like work on himself during training and spend time with the coaching staff. And I think he looked fresh. He looked fresher than a lot of the other players on the pitch. That was because as a result of the break. So he had a good game. He did what he had to do, pressing, going for the ball, showing energy on the midfield, showing energy on the pitch. He did all of those things. He's basically a typical Fred performance, what he would expect, right? You have that one odd shot which would go in row Z of the stands because obviously it wouldn't go on target. But yeah, a solid performance from him. And yeah, like Josh said, he's definitely a squad player. He has a certain role, a certain function, which I think fits in certain games, especially against the big teams. I think he tends to do really well. So yeah, keep him in the squad. Like Josh said, we've got a lot more bigger problems to solve.
Yeah. And lastly, resurgent, what do you think?
Yeah, as the boys have already said, the fact of the matter is Fred is Fred. He's been the same player for 2-3 years now. And what he does is he runs around a lot and presses and wins the ball back. He's like an Energizer bunny or like a terrier dog whose job is just to harass the opposition. And he does it well. At halftime, I said I would have taken Fred off. I still stand by that. Despite the fact that he had a phenomenal second half. It's not because I didn't think he played well in the first half. I think he was fine. The problem I had was him and Pogba, I don't think work as a midfield duo. I've said this before. And it's not just him and Pogba. I don't believe Fred can play as the most defensive of the midfielders. Because he likes to press and vacate space, and then that causes a chasm in our midfield, which makes it harder for us to build up play for quick transitions, and then also leave space for us to be counterattacked into. And I think both of those things we saw in the first half against Brighton. In the second half, Ollie was able to maybe get Fred to settle down a little bit more and stay in position, and that I think helped us, but it's not his natural instinct. And so for me, we have to play Paul Pogba with either Matic or McTominay. And I would have taken Fred off to go for the improved midfield combination. But he had a good match if you just look at him on his own and not the pivot as a whole. And given that he had a good match, it's unsurprising, honestly. You said a little bit of a resurgence. The thing is with Fred, he makes 5 hospital passes a season. So if every time he made one, his form dipped for 3 weeks, he'd never play a good game because that's who Fred is. We've seen this over the years now. He's not a player who's going to be error free. He's a player who's absolutely going to receive the ball and lose it under pressure, or he's going to receive the ball and play it straight to their striker. And that's going to happen once every month or two. And if you're playing Fred regularly, you have to accept that. And as they've said, I personally see Fred as a squad player moving forward. I wouldn't look to sell him. I just think he shouldn't be a starter for us. I think there should be someone of increased quality in that position.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I think we all made some good points there, all of you. I think now it's time to move on to the Granada preview, so we'll get into that now. Okay, so moving on finally to the Granada game, the Europa League quarterfinals on Thursday. Trying to get all your thoughts on that. So United Resurgent, what do you think about the game?
Yeah, so I mentioned this when we were discussing it when the draw first happened, but I think we're playing probably the weakest side or one of the weakest sides left in the competition. I think this is a great opportunity for us. I don't expect us to have trouble over two legs. They may get a draw in one of them, but I don't expect us to struggle over the 180 minutes at least. Granada are second bottom in La Liga for expected points. They are currently, I believe, 9th in their actual league table. As far as the form calendar or as far as their form goes, over the last, let's say, since the start of 2021, Granada have been 17th in La Liga, which is obviously abysmal in a 20-team league. And all signs point to the fact that they're a defensively weak side who are going to have to mass two banks of four, and we're going to have to break them down. But they don't have the quality of the relegation zone teams in the Premier League. And I fully expect us to win the two legs, something like 5-1 on aggregate. It's going to be like last season for those who remember that, I think, basically.
Yeah, I think they're somewhat strong. They have some quality, but as you say, if they're second bottom on expected
their top
points,
goal scorer, as far as I'm aware, is Roberto Soldado, who I don't know if you guys remember him from when he was at Spurs, but he couldn't finish his dinner. He's been better in Spain. He's had a good career at Villarreal, at Valencia, and now at Granada, but ultimately he's not a top quality player, and everyone else is worse than he is. So this is the type of game where the squad players that we have, the Dan Jameses of the world, the Axel Tuanzebis, they should be plenty to overcome Granada. And if they're not, you have to question what they're doing at a club like United.
Okay, fair enough. So Vin, what are your thoughts on the tie?
Yeah, I think it's a good game to sort of bench some of our first teamers, give them a bit of rest, like Rashford, Bruno, maybe, and then to sort of give them a week off before the Spurs game, which I think is pretty important, obviously. So ideal scenario would be play a decent side, a bit of rotation, kill the game off in the first leg, score about 3 to 4 goals, and then heavily rotate in the second leg. Play the likes of Williams and give Ahmad maybe a start against them. It's a good opportunity for him as well. So yeah, I think this should be an easy tie for us over the course of two legs. Even over the course of the first leg itself. So, like Resurgent said, they haven't been a good team. They're bottom, they're near the bottom of La Liga, and yeah, I think we're lucky to have the easiest tie in the quarterfinals.
Just sorry to add on to what Vin was saying really quickly. This is the second leg of this tie is where our youth expert, United Apollo, has predicted that Ahmad will make his full debut. So just something to keep your eye out on, given that he seems to understand the youth a little bit better than the rest of us.
Yeah. Didn't he say he thinks he'll make his full debut in one of the two legs, though? I don't think he'll play in the first one. Well, he might come off the bench, but...
Yeah, he said one of the two legs, but he said probably the second.
Yeah, I think so. I think if we can get a few goals up, then that would be the perfect game for Ahmad to come into, because I know we were 4-0 against Sociedad, or I think it was 4, but Sociedad are a lot stronger than Granada, obviously, and there's a lot more threat there. So if we have the same sort of situation, then that's a really good time for Ahmad to come in. But yeah, Josh, what do you think about it finally?
Well, Granada are really poor away from home, so if we can get this result in the first leg, then we can rotate in the second leg for sure. I think they've only picked up 9 points away from home in the league. I'm not sure how they've done away from home in Europe. They've conceded the most goals in La Liga, so this could be a goal fest for us. It can be one of those games that we can use to string some performances together, and I'm excited. Hopefully a bit of rotation. I think Donny will start on Thursday, hopefully. Maybe a rest for Bruno with the Spurs game in mind, and I think Rashford should be one game a week until the proper business end. I've just got a feeling about Ahmad. I feel like there might be something on Thursday. I know everyone's expecting maybe next Thursday. I've just got a tiny feeling with Martial injured and with Rashford potentially injured. I don't know. I could maybe see a Cavani, Ahmad, and Dan James front three, with Greenwood waiting until Thursday, till the Spurs game on Sunday. Who knows? But I'm excited about the game because Granada aren't a very good team. I hope they don't bite us in the arse. And we've underestimated them, but I don't think we have. I mean, for them to have the second least amount of expected points in the league?
Yeah.
That is terrible, really. I mean, how are they getting so lucky to be ninth? I think in the past they might have
Brighton, basically, in a way.
Yeah, the reverse Brighton. I think usually strikers like Roberto Soldado would have maybe caused us issues in the past, but I don't think Maguire really, he gets slept on, and I don't think he will cause him any issues. But I think to Nzebe, that this would be a good game for him to come in and partner Harry. And yeah, hopefully a little bit of rotation on Thursday, and then a lot of rotation next Thursday, ideally, if things work out well. But I'm very excited.
So Josh was touching on their European away form. They won in the qualifying rounds, both of their away matches, 4-0 at Tuta, I think it's called. It's an Albanian team. They won 3-1 at Malmo. And then in the group stages, they beat PSV Eindhoven away from home 2-1. They beat Ammonia, which is a Cypriot club, 2-0 away from home. And then they lost, then they drew with PAOK, the Greek team. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that overall. But since they've gotten to the knockout phases, they've been struggling. They lost 2-1 at Napoli, but went through. They lost 2-1 at Molde, but went through. And that last one is significant, I think, because we all know that if Molde beat Granada at home and we fail to, the number of outrageous comments on Twitter is going to explode and reach new heights. So it's a must win for Ole, not because he needs it to get through in the tie. It's a must win simply because we want to avoid those awful comparisons that are going to be made between Thursday and Sunday this week if we fail to get the win.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, it's good points there as always. But I want to move on to the starting 11 as well. I know we mentioned, as Josh mentioned, maybe Van der Beek get a start. We were talking about Amad Diallo, Axel Twansby. So, Vin, what are your thoughts on starting Twansby? Because I think Williams could start as well. Tellez maybe. What do you think about that sort of back four?
So I've gone with the back four of Telles as left back, Tuanzebe, Maguire. I still think he's going to play, and Wan-Bissaka on as right back. I feel that that's the most likely back four that we might go with. I think Shaw's going to be given a rest, Lindelof as well, given that he has to manage his back. Williams, I think he might come on for the second leg once we get it off. So, but besides that, yeah, and Bai is out with COVID, so the back four kind of picks itself. Yeah.
He's so unlucky, Bai, isn't he? Because if it's not an injury, it's coronavirus or something else.
I know, but when does your luck run out? Every time it goes on international break, there's something different. If you're a manager, you must be getting so frustrated every single time. It's like, when's this player going to take football seriously? We all saw the videos of him on the bus. I don't know. I'm getting a bit sick of Eric Bailly, to be honest.
I can feel that. 100 appearances in 5 years, whereas Harry Maguire's done that in just under 2. It really says it all, both about Maguire's availability and the fact that Eric Bailly is made of glass, and not just any glass, the cheapest glass you can possibly find.
Yeah. I think Twansby, he's definitely someone more for the long term, because I think Bay's going to go in the summer. So
I know we
at one point Twansby gone.
I was just saying, I know we jumped to the defenders. Does everyone agree that it should be David De Gea in goal?
Yep.
Yeah. Keeper, yeah. Okay. And then I think we were saying Wan-Bissaka, Tuanzebe, Maguire, and Telles. Is that the back four that we talked about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm advocating for.
Yeah.
If someone was
sure,
that's great.
I was just thinking, was there a case for Tuanzebe at right back? But then it's just been international break. Wan-Bissaka's had 2 weeks rest. I'm sure that he will be playing this game. Yeah.
The issue is giving Lindelof's back the rest that it needs. Wan-Bissaka is more durable than Lindelof, so if we can only rest one of them, and given that I don't think Ollie trusts Brandon Williams to start this match, we can only rest one of them, then I would rather rest Lindelof.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And I was saying, in terms of Twansby, at one point Twansby was potentially going to be taking Lindelof's spot. Was it first half of last season? He was performing really well in every game he played in the Europa League. And then I remember he was starting in a back three against Liverpool, and he got injured in the warm-up, and ever since then he's just not quite reached the same height. So he's been really unlucky with that, and ever since he just hasn't really managed to get appearances, certainly not in the Premier League. But hopefully he can get back to what he was at that stage, because I think potentially he's probably one of the best centre-backs in the league. But right now he's not quite there. So
he struggled with injuries for quite a while at last season and the season before, but not the season before, just last season at the tail end. But I think this season he's been fit more often than not, and Ollie's just chosen Lindelof and Bailly ahead of him, which, given that he's 22, 23 years old, it says a lot about where Ollie sees his place in the future. I was a big fan of Axel Tuanzebe. I thought he would make it at the club. But I've grown to think now that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has decided that he's a squad player, and when he stops being happy to be a squad player, he'll be playing for a different club. And I don't think he's ever going to break in the starting 11, which is sad because I think he has the talent to do so. I think the manager's just lost faith in him for that position.
Just a bit of breaking news from United. Anthony Alenga has been added to the United squad for the game on Thursday, so it looks like he'll be flying with the squad on Thursday.
I suggest that Marcus Rashford is definitely not on the plane, right? Because he's the similar left wing position. It suggests probably like Shola Shoretire was filling in on the bench to complete it. Previously, we're going to see maybe Alonga help fill out the bench, maybe get a small cameo at the end.
Yeah, could be that. Yeah.
Just quickly regarding Tuanzebe, I think a lot of us were hyped up when he was at loan at Aston Villa, because he had, I think that was like one of his sort of breakthrough seasons really in top flight football, because he had a really good loan season, and all of us thought that he's going to come back, he's going to challenge Lindelof for that centre back spot. And when Maguire came in, we thought, okay, if Lindelof doesn't perform well with Maguire, Tuanzebe is going to come and take over his place. So it's going to be like a Maguire-Tuanzebe partnership. But yeah, like Resurgence said, he's been injured quite frequently, too frequently, in fact, to sort of even challenge for any centre-back spot, really. So a bit of luck and, I guess just a bit of... And I think also the fact that he had a couple of games where he had howlers, he made mistakes, and that sort of affected his confidence as well. So it could be just an accumulation of those two factors, really. That's
one of the things that stands out to me is the comparison between Dean Henderson and Axel Tuanzebe with regard to the future for Jimmy Garner. So what I mean by that is Axel Tuanzebe and Dean Henderson both excelled on loan in the Championship in the 2018-19 season. for 2019-20, Ollie chose to let Henderson go on loan in the Premier League to Sheffield United, and Axel Tuanzebe stayed at United and played less minutes. And now we're at the point where Dean Henderson played that one season on loan in the Premier League. I remember against Liverpool, he had an absolute howler. He let the ball go straight through his hands and his legs and conceded a goal, and it was incredibly embarrassing. And he made those kind of mistakes at Sheffield United, but he was also able to showcase his highs, and he was able to adapt to the level required. And then when he came back to United, he was more ready. With Tuanzebe, I think we might have made a mistake not letting him go to Villa on loan last season to kind of work out the remaining issues with his game. And so with Jimmy Garner impressing in the Championship at Nottingham Forest, I think he scored in his last 2 matches for them now. There's definitely a very good argument to be made that he should be following the Henderson path and not the Tuanzebe path. Let him go on loan to a Premier League team and improve away from the limelight a little bit, and then come back to the club in a stronger position to challenge for a first team spot.
Do you think it was different situations though? Because obviously Chris Smalling was leaving. We hadn't signed Maguire until a week before the season started. And there was just quite a few changes, obviously, in defence. And Ollie had spoken about Tuanzebe this season before. I did ask Laurie Whitwell if he would speak about Tuanzebe in his podcast. So hopefully he read that and maybe speaks about him, because you just never hear anything about what the plan is about Tuanzebe or Williams and what they're going to do next season. So hopefully we start to hear more about that kind of thing soon. By all accounts, Tuanzebe is a great leader. He's intelligent. He wants to know things. Because he's been captain all through the levels and he's won certain awards, which only very special youngsters do win, I just still feel like we need a couple more years to see if he is going to move on.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So yeah, we've gone on about Tuanzebe and Tellez, etc. So in terms of the midfield, I know we mentioned Van de Beek. Do you guys think Pogba will start? What do you think, Vin? What do you think in terms of the midfield?
Yeah, I've gone for a McTominay and Van de Beek midfield. Surprising, because I just feel that Ollie's going to rest Pogba for this one. I don't think Pogba plays in this one. And McTominay didn't play the last game against Brighton. So I think he's got, you could say, a week's rest after the game against, he played for Scotland. So a week off, he's fresh. So McTominay definitely to start. And I think Van de Beek gets in as well. He seems to be much more confident after the international break, where he scored a goal, got an assist, so he had a good performance. So I feel that Van de Beek should get a start, and I think this game is ideal for him. So for me, the two of them in midfield with Bruno as the number 10.
Yeah, Josh, do you think Van de Beek could work in a pivot then, or give us your midfield as well? But what do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I've not seen him enough to know if he could. I've seen obviously a little bits. I'd like to think with a more natural number 6 that he probably could, or number 4, as the English like to call it. My midfield would be, because if Rashford is injured, I would like one of Bruno or Pogba in there, because we need somebody. Do you know what I mean, with that personality on the pitch? Because without Rashford and another one, we always seem to struggle. So I would like Pogba or Bruno or both to be there. I wouldn't mind. What I've got down here is McTominay, Donny van de Beek and Matic with a big square box around him, because I'm just really not sure. I'm really not a big fan of Matic at the moment. So I'd go with McTominay, Pogba and Donny van de Beek.
Yeah, okay. Surgeon, what do you think in terms of the midfield?
Yeah, so I've gone with Matic, McTominay, and Van de Beek in midfield, and then I would probably go with Pogba off the right. The reason why I've done that is the way I'm looking at it is I want to rest Fred for Spurs. I want to make Fred midfield. So Matic immediately comes in. And then I'm playing McTominay and Van de Beek because I'm looking to rest Bruno Fernandes. You could play Pogba and then you could play Bruno and rest Pogba, who's coming off of injury, and that would be one way to approach it. But I'm looking at this from the perspective that the club's long-term interest is in resting and preserving the health of Bruno Fernandes, who's going to be here for years to come. And Paul Pogba is basically a 2-month loan at this point for us. He's going to be gone, so just use him up as much as you can. If you run him down to the ground, who cares? So as such, I'm playing Paul Pogba. I'm playing him off the right. If Ahmad's not going to start, I would obviously prefer to see him make his debut. So for me, it's Matic, McTominay, and then I would have either Ahmad or Pogba on the right, Van de Beek and James, and then Greenwood up front. I heard earlier that Cavani was mentioned as somebody who might start. For me, at 34 years old, coming back from injury, playing Cavani as a non-starter, I would look to rest him and see what Ninewood can do.
Yeah, okay. We're going to move on to forwards then, just nice and briefly, and then we'll end with predictions. Josh, what do you think? Who would you start as forwards?
Forwards, I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to go... Oh, don't be stupid, Josh. I want to say Ahmad, Greenwood, and Daniel James, but that just... We're away from home in a European tie. I think that would be suicide. I'm going to go with Pogba, Greenwood, James.
Okay.
But I've already put Pogba in my midfield, so I can't do that. I don't know. I'm just going to own it and say Ahmad, Greenwood, and Daniel James, and just own that.
Mm-hmm. Because the issue is Cavani is you could play Cavani, Martial is out, but is he going to be able to play 4 days later? I'm not sure, because does he just have the legs for that now? I don't know.
He can't play 3 matches in a week. It's just not going to happen. So this is the one he should miss.
I mean, if Newcastle could create 4 XG against Spurs, we are going to need Cavani if we're going to be creating chances.
Yeah.
Though, every team turns into their best selves against us. So the fact that Newcastle created 4 XG doesn't mean a lot.
No.
Yeah. So, United with Sergio, what would your actual front three be then?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier with the midfield, for me, I'm playing Paul Pogba on the right. I'm playing Dan James on the left and Mason Greenwood through the middle. We don't really have a lot of options, and that's why I played Matic, McTominay, and Van de Beek in midfield, because I wanted to save Pogba for that front three, because he's going to need to fill in. Rashford's not fit. Martial's gone for the season. Cavani shouldn't play 3 times a week for obvious reasons. So really, there's not a lot of choice here. Somebody's got to fill in. It's got to be Ahmad or it's got to be Pogba. And for me, as much as I'd like to see Ahmad, I think Ollie will go with Paul Pogba. Yeah, Vin, just go for it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I've been thinking about this for quite a while now. It's tough, isn't it? Because we don't have Martial. Cavani's 34, so you don't want to play 3 games in a week with him. And we don't have a right winger, essentially. So I'm going to go with James on the left, Greenwood up top, and either Pogba starts on the right, but if Ollie decides to rest him, I think Ahmad gets a start. I just feel, I mean, simply because we don't have any other option. Rashford, I think he's got something with his foot, so he's going to sit this one out, make sure he prepares himself for the Spurs game. Cavani, like you said, is 34. Again, we play on Thursday, and then the Spurs game is on Sunday, I think. So that I don't think he might be able to pull off that quick turnaround. And yeah, again, lack of options, which means that Pogba either starts on the right, but because he's come off an injury, you don't want to rush him as well, get everything out of him for the next 2 months. So that leaves him with no choice. And if Ole does want to rest him, then I think Amad Diallo starts.
Sounds like we're all on the same page here with regards to the front three, broadly speaking. Reese is having some technical difficulties and seems to be fading in and out, so I'll go ahead and take over guest hosting duties for these last 2 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and ask now, as far as predictions, how do you guys feel we'll do against Granada?
Do you want me to go first? I'll go first. They lost 3-0 at the weekend against Villarreal. We scored 2 without playing brilliantly. I'm going to go 3-1 United.
Vin?
Yeah. Scored 2 without being flawless. But we also conceded 1. But given that Granada, they don't really score that much, they haven't scored in recent games, I'm going to go with 3-0.
And Reese, if you're able to hear me, I'd love to hear your prediction.
Yeah, I think I'm back at least for a few seconds. So I'll keep this brief. I think 3-0. I think we'll smash them.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. I'm saying 3-0 myself. I think United will absolutely run riot, and that'll set up a comfortable second leg next week. So it seems like we're all broadly on the same page with both the lineup and also our predictions. Hopefully what we've predicted shall come to pass. Thanks everybody for listening to the Red Devil's Den podcast. Please go ahead and follow us on Twitter at the Red Devil's Den. Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon for notifications when we release more videos. And if you could like and share this video, it'd be absolutely fantastic and help us reach more Reds like yourself. Everyone have a great day.